since Mud 2, have you worked on more games since that point, or after that you went more onto the book writing, research, academia side?
Well, I have worked on them, but as consultants, so people who have got the money to create these games will invite me to look their games over, to tell them what I think about them, give my my comments on them. Sometimes it's quite exciting. Sometimes it's oh dear, this is oh dear. So I do get that. Not as much as I used to do, because there are now lots more people who are able to give that advice. So it's not something that I keep as a as a second career much now, although it was for some time. So I do work on those, but the thing is that for massively multiplayer games, you need so much money to make them, and I don't have access to that kind of money, that I'm not going to be able to make them. But as a game designer, you don't actually have to make them. You can just sit and design things for fun, which is like what I do. So I design games for fun. Sometimes I make them. All game designers will do that. They'll have little game designs in various stages of completion. In the same way that programmers have got all these different projects, and they start writing their projects, and then suddenly they get a better idea and they abandon it, and then they go off and they come back and they look at this ramshackle hut that they've built, and and that's no good. Or maybe it would be better if I just built some more bits around it, and they'll add some, and then they'll go off to somewhere else on GitHub, and it's a bit like that for game designers. If you like designing games, and you have to be a game designer, because otherwise why would you waste your time doing it? If you like doing it, then you do it for fun. So yeah, I do still design games, just not necessarily ones that anyone's going to play.
Yeah, I think the resource requirement is an unfortunate thing, because one of the very satisfying things is when you create a game and you see people play it and they tell stories about it, and they talked about how they meet each other or how they beat this very challenging boss. And I think that is one of the very exciting moments as a game designer. Unfortunately, designing a game, I think, is intrinsically fun in by itself, just to be very creative. But the lack of opportunities because of the threshold to have that experience, like writing, it's like writing 20 novels, but no one ever reads them, right? It's obviously not as satisfying, but I can understand.
Yes, game designers don't strive for success, but they wouldn't say no if it came along. They're quite happy to. Yeah,
I think there's also this career success of a game, but also just the connection to a player. I've seen game designers say they don't have to make tons of money with their game, but then when they see their players playing, they're like, oh, I felt heard in a way, right? I connect with a human being, and I think that's very precious for a lot of game designers.
Well, yes, that's because game design is an art form, and if you're designing games, then you're trying to communicate with your players. As for what you're trying to communicate, well, you might have some vague idea of what you're trying to communicate, but really the only way that you can communicate it is if people play the game. They have to play the game to understand it, because the game's a process, and you're passing the message to the player through the gameplay. So if you see somebody playing your game and getting it, then that means that your artistic expression has worked, and that means you can then think, well, all those other people who may be playing it now or in the future, who I'll never meet, at least I know there's a chance they'll get it. They'll understand what it is I'm trying to make. So yeah.